Nature is the ultimate con artist. Look closely at the sky. For centuries, the human mind has been shackled by a single, flawed blueprint for flight: the bird. We believe that to conquer the heavens, one must be light, fragile, and feathered. We assume that once a creature reaches the size of a giraffe, it is forever anchored to the earth by the unforgiving hand of gravity. But the fossil record of the Late Cretaceous holds a classified dossier that shatters this illusion. Meet Quetzalcoatlus, northropi. Standing nearly 6 meters tall with a wingspan that could overshadow a two-story building, it weighs nearly 1/4 of a ton. Conventional physics dictates that such a mass should be aerodynamically impossible to lift. If it tried to flap its wings like a bird, the sheer inertia of its body would snap its humerus like dry parchment. The false truth we told ourselves was that these giants were merely gliders, waiting for cliffside thermals to catch their clumsy frames. The forensic reality is far more terrifying. Quetzalcoatlus did not use its wings to fly. It used them as hydraulic catapults. It was a pogo stick of flesh and bone, a biological machine that invented a method of launch, so violent, so efficient, that it bypassed the laws of avian flight entirely. To understand how this ghost of the skies existed, we must perform a biomechanical autopsy on a machine that should not fly. The setting is the Javelina Formation, 68 million years ago. An environment defined by slate-gray floodplains and a suffocating arid heat. Here, the atmosphere is a hostile board of physics. The air is thin, and the thermal currents are unpredictable. For a creature of this scale, every takeoff is a high-stakes gamble with extinction. The isolation is absolute. There are no dense forests to hide in, only vast open stretches where a predator must either be fast or invisible. Quetzalcoatlus chose a third path. It became an atmospheric titan. The forensic landscape is littered with the remains of lesser creatures, but the ghost remains elusive. Its tracks suggesting a predator that moves with the eerie silence of a stalking stork, yet possesses the hardware of a high-altitude bomber. Survival for a giant pterosaur is not a majestic glide. It is a constant battle against structural failure. Imagine the mechanical friction of a 250-kilogram mass trying to break free from the soil. The struggle begins on the ground. Before it achieves dominance in the air, the Quetzalcoatlus must navigate the hostile variables of the floodplain. A near miss from a juvenile tyrannosaur forces a sudden escape, but it cannot set loose. It must engage its hydraulic springs. The failure points are everywhere. A slight miscalculation in the angle of the wing arm, a gust of wind at the wrong microsecond, or the collapse of the hollow limb under the immense pressure of the launch. We observe the biological strain, the tension in the massive triceps, the flexing of the skin membrane, and the immense torque applied to the shoulder joints. It is a life lived on the edge of a snap. The struggle is not against other predators. It is against the crushing weight of its own ambition. To solve the mystery of how a giraffe-sized animal takes flight, we must look at the forelimbs. Unlike birds, which rely on leg power for the initial jump, Quetzalcoatlus utilized a revolutionary quadrupedal launch mechanism. Forensically, we see the wing arms are not just aerodynamic surfaces, they are massive kinetic batteries. The creature crouches, shifting its weight onto its extraordinarily long metacarpals. These are the piston rods of the machine. By vaulting over its own arms, Quetzalcoatlus creates a catapult effect. The triceps muscle, as thick as a human torso, contracts with enough force to generate a sudden burst of upwards of 3,000 newtons. This is equivalent to a professional athlete attempting to perform a standing vertical jump, while carrying a grand piano on their back, using only their arms. This vaulting motion bypasses the limitations of avian leg power. While a bird's legs are dead weight once in the air, the Quetzalcoatlus's launching engines are its wings. There is no wasted biomass. This exhibit proves that the creature didn't flap into the air, it exploded into it. The forensic data reveals that this singular adaptation allowed it to transition from a stationary ground position to a self-sustaining flight speed in less than a second. Without this hydraulic vault, the Quetzalcoatlus would be nothing more than an oversized, flightless carcass. How does a creature maintain a 6-meter height and a 12-meter wingspan without being crushed by its own skeleton? The autopsy of the skeletal system reveals a sandwich construction that rivals modern aerospace technology. We examine the cross-section of a wing bone. The walls are paper-thin, in some places less than 3 millimeters. By all rights, these bones should buckle under the stress of flight. However, the internal cavity is not empty. It is reinforced with a network of delicate, crisscrossing bony struts called trabeculae. This is a biological lattice girder system. These struts provide multi-directional support, allowing the bone to resist bending and torsion while remaining 90% air. Furthermore, the bone material itself is a specialized carbon fiber analog. It is dense in mineral content where stress is highest, yet porous elsewhere. The forensic anomaly here is the buckling threshold. To stay light enough to fly, the Quetzalcoatlus lives permanently at 95% of its structural breaking point. One hard landing, one awkward gust, and the machine suffers a catastrophic structural fracture. It is a skeletal architecture that values performance over safety. A high-performance racer that is one crash away from total disintegration. The most chilling revelation of the autopsy is that this master of disguise was designed to spend the majority of its life on the ground. We examine the neck and the beak. The neck is nearly 3 meters long, composed of vertebrae that are elongated and locked into a rigid, crane-like structure. Unlike the flexible necks of herons, the Quetzalcoatlus had a power strike neck. The musculature suggests a downward stabbing motion of immense speed and kinetic energy. The feet are not the talons of an eagle. They are padded and compact, similar to those of a hoofed animal. This is a machine built for terrestrial locomotion. It stalked the Cretaceous plains like a nightmare stork, using its height to spot small dinosaurs and mammals from a distance. Being hunted by a Quetzalcoatlus on the ground would be like being chased by a 4-legged giraffe with the head of a giant spear, capable of snapping its neck down to impale you before you even see its eyes move. The autopsy concludes that flight was merely a transport mechanism, a way to move between feeding grounds. The Quetzalcoatlus was a terrestrial apex predator that hijacked the sky to expand its hunting range. It is a biological subversion, an animal that evolved the most complex flight system in history, only to use it as a glorified taxi. In the end, gravity always wins. The Quetzalcoatlus existed in a narrow window of biological possibility. It was a machine optimized for a specific atmospheric density and a specific caloric abundance. When the world changed at the end of the Cretaceous, when the climate shifted and the large-scale prey disappeared, the energy tax of maintaining such a massive, fragile frame became too high. It did not die because it was weak. It died because it was too perfect. It had pushed the limits of biomechanics so far that there was no room for error. The ghost of the skies was erased, not by a better predator, but by the cold, indifferent math of energy in versus energy out. The code of the Quetzalcoatlus remains a chilling reminder for our own future. Mutation is a double-edged sword. We strive for the ultimate performance, for the fastest machines, for the most complex systems. But as the Quetzalcoatlus proves, the more specialized a machine becomes, the more fragile it is. We are currently building our own hollow bones in our technology and our society, pushing the threshold of what is sustainable. But remember, the sky does not forgive a broken wing, and gravity never forgets a debt. The Quetzalcoatlus was a ghost of the sky, a hydraulic titan that shouldn't have been, but it was not the only prehistoric machine to cheat the laws of nature. Deep in the ancient oceans, another predator was perfecting a weapon that used sound as a kinetic hammer. Accessing the next file,